Hey there, and welcome to our deep dive into becoming a full stack developer.
It's a pretty hot topic these days.
Yeah, you're interested in this whole full stack path, right?
Yeah,
And we've got a ton of resources to break down.
yeah, a whole stack of
So you
resources.
can really get a clear picture of what's involved.
Definitely.
We're going to cover not just what skills you need,
Mm-hmm.
but also how you might think about structuring your learning
Okay.
over time.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something you learn overnight.
No, definitely not.
Plus, we'll get into some salary insights
Oh, everyone loves to hear about that.
just to keep things interesting.
Gotta keep people engaged.
And
Okay.
this whole full stack thing isn't brand new.
No, it's not.
It's actually got a pretty interesting history.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating how full stack development has
Yeah.
really evolved alongside the web itself.
Mm.
In the early days, it was more out of necessity.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as the web grew more complex, then we saw specialization emerge. But now we've kind of circled back to this need for developers who can see both the front end and the back end.
Right. So these big picture thinkers.
Exactly, the big picture thinker.
Okay, so before we get lost in history,
Sure.
let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is a full stack developer?
A full stack developer is someone who can work on both the front end and the back end of an application.
So just to be clear for anyone listening who might be totally new to this,
Yeah.
the front end is everything that the user sees and interacts with, right?
Exactly. So like all the buttons and menus and the layout and the text, the images, all that stuff.
Got it.
And then the back end is all the behind the scenes stuff that makes it all work.
So it is the engine under the hood.
Yeah, it's like the engine under the hood.
The stuff we don't see, but that makes everything run.
Precisely.
So I guess it's kind of like you need to know how to bake a cake
Okay.
and build the oven.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah, and I guess that versatility makes full stack developers super valuable
Yeah, definitely.
because they can speak both languages.
Mm-hmm.
They can bridge that gap
Right.
between what users experience and how it all comes together.
Exactly. And companies love that they don't have to hire separate people.
Right. Less overhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That makes sense.
So I guess the big question is,
Yeah.
how do you actually become one?
Right. So our sources lay out kind of a career path
Yeah, a typical progression.
from beginner to expert.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the key things someone would learn along that way?
Well, as a beginner, you'd really focus on those core languages,
Okay.
like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for the front end.
Right. Those are the front end basics.
Yeah, exactly. And for the back end, you'd start with databases and server-side scripting.
Got it. So it's about building those foundational skills first.
Yeah, you got to lay that foundation.
It's like learning the alphabet before you can write a novel.
Exactly. You can't write a novel without knowing the alphabet.
All right. So once you've got those basics down,
Mm-hmm.
what happens when you level up to intermediate?
At the intermediate level, you start diving deeper. You get
Oh.
into front-end frameworks like React Angular or Vue.js.
Ooh, those sound a little more complex.
Yeah, they are a bit more advanced, but they're super useful. They help you build those complex user interfaces faster.
So are they like pre-built structures or something?
Yeah, you can think of them like pre-built structures or like templates that give you a head start.
Hmm.
And on the back end, you'd start mastering frameworks too.
Oh.
Like Node.js, Python's Django, or Flask, or Ruby on Rails.
Wow, those are some serious names.
Yeah, these frameworks provide a kind of blueprint for building the logic and the functionality of your applications.
So you're not starting from scratch every time.
No, definitely not. You're building upon what others have already created.
Okay. So I can see how the learning curve really ramps up there.
It definitely does.
And what about the expert level?
The expert level.
Our source mentions something called containerization with Docker.
Ah, yes.
Docker. And I got to be honest, it sounds kind of intimidating.
I know it sounds scary, but it's not as bad as it seems.
Okay, good.
Think of Docker like shipping containers for your app.
Okay.
It basically packages up everything your application needs to run,
Uh-huh.
so it can work seamlessly on any platform.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super useful. And at this level, you're also thinking about how to design systems that can handle tons of users and traffic.
Right, scalability.
Exactly. Scalability. That's where things like scalable architecture come in.
So you're not just building an app.
Yeah.
You're building an app that can grow and evolve.
Precisely, you're thinking long term.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
But let's be honest, is this career path really for everyone?
That's a good question.
What kind of person actually thrives as a full stack developer?
Well, full stack development is a demanding field,
I can imagine.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Okay.
You need someone who loves to solve problems.
Problem solvers.
Yes, definitely problem solvers who thrive on continuous learning.
Okay, because this field never stands still.
No, it never stands still. There's always something new to learn.
So you got to be okay with constantly evolving, that
Absolutely.
growing and learning.
And you have to be the kind of person who gets excited about seeing their work come to life.
Right, in the hands of users.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big part of it.
Okay, so you need that problem-solving mindset.
Definitely.
Our sources also mention that full-stack devs tend to be
Yeah.
versatile and big-picture thinkers.
Yes, that's very true.
I can see how versatility is important
Yeah.
since you're juggling the front end and the back end.
Mm-hmm.
But why is being a big-picture thinker so crucial?
Well, because a full stack developer needs to see how all the pieces fit together.
Uh-huh.
You're not just writing code in isolation.
Right. You're building a system.
Exactly. You're building a complete system, so you have to be able to zoom out and see the big picture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's like being an architect, you know?
Yeah,
You have to be able to envision the entire building,
not just one room
not just one room.
or one wall.
Exactly.
You know, it's fascinating to see how this whole full-stack role
Yeah.
has evolved over time.
It has been an interesting journey.
It's not like someone just invented it one day, right?
No, not at all.
Like, hey, let's call this full-stack development.
It was more of an organic evolution.
So how did it actually come about?
Well, in the early days of the web, things were much simpler.
I can imagine.
Developers often just worked on all aspects of a website.
Really?
Yeah, it was out of necessity
Oh, interesting.
because the technologies were more straightforward.
So everyone was kind of a full-stack developer by default.
Yeah, pretty much everyone was a full stack developer.
But then as the web grew more complex,
Things started to get more specialized.
we started to see front-end specialists, back-end gurus, database wizards, and so on.
People started to specialize in different areas.
So why are we seeing this comeback of the full-stack developer?
Well, it's tied to how complex web applications have become. Today, we're building things like single-page applications, real-time collaborative tools,
Wow.
apps that need to scale to millions of users.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame now.
It's a whole different ballgame, and this requires someone who can connect the dots,
Right.
someone who understands how the front end and back end interact.
And make sure that entire system works smoothly.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see why this role is in such high demand these days.
Oh, yeah, the demand is through the roof.
Okay, so we've got the history,
Huh?
the career path,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the actual tools and languages involved?
Yes, the toolkit.
I'm looking at this list in our sources, and
Yeah.
it's a bit overwhelming.
It can be a bit daunting.
I know.
Where do you even begin?
Well, the good news is you don't need to know everything right away.
Okay, that's a relief.
That comes with experience.
Phew.
The key is understanding the core concepts and choosing a learning path that aligns with your interests.
Okay, so it's more about focusing on the fundamentals first.
Exactly. Build that strong foundation. So let's say I'm completely new to this.
Okay.
What are a few of the essential tools or languages
Mm-hmm.
I should really focus on first?
On the front end, it's all about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Okay, the Holy Trinity.
Exactly. Those are your foundation.
And can you just give us like a really quick rundown of
Yeah.
what each of those does?
HTML provides the structure of a web page.
Like the bones.
Yeah, like the bones.
CSS is all about the style.
Yeah, it makes it look good, controls the colors, the fonts,
Mm.
the layout, all that.
Okay, and JavaScript.
JavaScript brings it to life. It's all about the interactivity.
Just makes the website dynamic.
Exactly. It makes it interactive and engaging.
Okay, that sounds pretty manageable.
It is. It's a good starting point.
And what about for the back end side of things?
For the back end, you have a lot of options.
Okay.
Some popular choices are Node.js,
Mhm.
which lets you use JavaScript for both the front end and back end.
Oh, so you can use the same language for both.
Yeah, it's pretty handy.
Cool.
You've also got Python, which is known for being readable and versatile. And Ruby, which is often praised for its elegant syntax.
So lots of different flavors to choose from.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to build and your personal preferences.
Okay, so we've got front-end languages, back-end languages.
Mm-hmm.
What about databases?
Ah, yes, databases, they're crucial.
They seem pretty important to making everything work.
They're basically where all the information for your application lives.
Okay,
Think of them like a giant organized library
got it.
for your website or app.
So it's not just a random jumble of files somewhere.
No. It's very structured and organized.
What are some of the different types of databases?
Well, you have relational databases like MySQL and PostgreSQL,
Okay.
which organize data in a structured way, kind of like a spreadsheet.
Right, tables, rows, columns.
Exactly.
And then you have NoSQL databases like MongoDB,
Yes.
which are more flexible.
Yes, they're good for handling large amounts of unstructured data.
So I guess choosing the right database depends on the type of information your app needs to handle.
It depends on the type and the amount of data.
Okay, we're starting to build a picture here.
Mm-hmm.
Front-end languages, back-end languages, databases.
Yeah.
But how do all these pieces actually fit together?
That's where frameworks come in.
Okay, tell me more.
Frameworks provide a structure and a set of pre-written components
Uh-huh.
that make development faster and more efficient.
So it's like having a set of pre-made building blocks.
Exactly, instead of starting from scratch with individual bricks.
That makes a lot of sense.
They give you a head start.
Okay, so our source actually dives into a really detailed step-by-step pathway,
Oh yeah, that's a great resource.
which breaks down the learning process into these different phases,
Yeah, it's like a roadmap.
from novice to expert.
Exactly. It guides you through the entire journey.
What's the first step on this pathway?
The first phase is all about getting started.
Okay.
And it focuses on those core web technologies we talked about, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Right, the foundation.
Exactly. And it even suggests a simple project, building a personal portfolio website.
That's a great way to start applying what you learn.
It is. It's a hands-on approach.
But you know what I find interesting is
What's that?
our source doesn't just list out skills.
Right.
It actually provides a detailed project plan
Yeah, they go the extra mile.
with specific projects to build.
It's odd.
Why is that so important?
Well, building projects is where you really solidify your understanding
Okay.
and showcase your abilities.
So it's not just about knowing the theory.
No, it's about putting it into practice.
You got to be able to actually build something.
Exactly. You need to have that practical experience.
And I guess a portfolio filled with diverse projects
Mm-hmm.
is really your golden ticket
It's your resume. It's your calling card.
to landing that dream job.
It shows potential employers what you're capable of.
So let's take a look at one of these projects.
Okay.
The source details a plan for building a weather app.
A weather app. That's a classic.
Why would building a weather app be a good project for someone?
Well, the weather app project focuses on front-end API integration.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
API integration? What's that?
You learn how to fetch real-time weather data from an external API.
So it's like connecting to another service
Exactly. You're pulling in data from another source.
and then displaying that data on your website.
Yeah, and you have to make it look good, too.
So there's that design element as well.
Yeah, it's a great way to combine front-end and back-end skills.
That sounds pretty challenging,
It is. It's a step up from building a simple website.
but I can imagine it's also super rewarding.
It is. It's very satisfying to see your app come to life with real-time information.
Yeah, I bet.
And it's something you can show off to potential employers.
Right.
It demonstrates your ability to work with APIs.
Which is a crucial skill for any developer.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part
We have.
of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've barely scratched the surface.
The definition of full stack, the career path,
Mm-hmm.
some of the core tools and languages,
It's a lot to take in.
and even a glimpse into the importance of building projects.
Yeah, hands-on experience is key.
Where do we go from here?
Well, in the next part, we're going to dive deeper into the world of front-end development.
Ooh,
We'll explore those core technologies and frameworks in more detail.
sounds like a plan. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty.
Me too. Let's do it.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive.
Where we'll uncover the magic behind those beautiful
Our interactive website.
and web applications.
I can't wait.
It's going to be fun.
Welcome back to our deep dive into full stack development.
All right, part 2.
In part 1, we kind of explored the big picture, right?
Overview.
The history, the career path,
Yeah.
those essential skills.
The fundamentals.
But now it's time to zoom in
Oh.
on the front end,
All right, the front end.
the part of the web that users actually see
Right, the part they interact with.
and engage with.
Exactly.
So it's like we're stepping into the world of user experience design,
Yeah, UX design.
where we focus on making websites and applications
Mm-hmm.
not just functional,
Right.
but also
Beautiful.
intuitive,
Yes.
engaging.
You want people to enjoy using it?
Right, because a website that's hard to use
Oh, yeah.
or just plain ugly,
Nobody wants to use that.
it's not going to keep people around for long.
No matter how clever the back end is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our sources talk about 3 core technologies
Yeah.
for front-end development:
The big 3.
HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yep. Those are the essentials.
So let's break those down,
Okay, let's do it.
shall we?
Right.
All right, let's start with HTML,
All right. HTML.
which stands for
Hypertext Markup Language.
Hypertext Markup
Yeah.
Language.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
So think of HTML as the skeleton of a website.
Okay, the skeleton.
It provides that basic structure,
Yeah, the foundation,
organization for all the content.
the framework that holds everything together.
So HTML is like the blueprint,
Yeah, like the blueprint of the house.
the framework
Yeah.
that holds everything together.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about CSS?
All right, CSS.
Where does that fit in?
CSS is all about visual presentation.
Okay.
It's like the interior designer.
Ooh, I like that.
It controls things like colors, fonts, spacing, layout, even animations.
So if HTML is the skeleton,
Yes.
CSS is what makes it look good.
Exactly. It adds the style, the personality.
It dresses it up.
It dresses it up, makes it presentable.
All right, so we've got the structure with HTML, we've got the style with CSS, but a website that just sits there looking pretty
Yeah.
isn't all that exciting, is it?
It needs a bit more.
That's where JavaScript comes in, right?
That's where the magic happens.
JavaScript is the language of interactivity.
It brings websites to life.
So it allows you to create things like drop-down menus, image carousels, animations that respond to user actions.
All sorts of cool stuff.
It's what turns a static page into a dynamic experience.
Exactly. Makes it interactive and engaging.
So JavaScript is like the brain.
Yeah, the brain of the operation.
Adding that layer of intelligence and responsiveness.
It makes it smart.
And I'm starting to see how these three technologies work together.
Yeah, they're like a team.
HTML for structure, CSS for style, JavaScript for interactivity.
It's the perfect combination.
But building complex websites and applications with just these basic tools can be a bit like...
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Building a house.
With just a hammer and nails.
Exactly.
It's possible, but it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, it'd be much easier to have some...
rebuilt components.
Some power tools.
Some power tools, exactly.
And that's where front-end frameworks come in.
Frameworks to the rescue.
They provide pre-written code, structures, best practices.
Oh, the good stuff.
That help you build more complex applications.
Yeah.
Faster and more efficiently.
They make your life easier.
So it's like having a set of power tools instead of just the basics.
Exactly. You can build things much faster and with less effort.
Our sources mention 3 particularly popular frameworks. React, Angular, and Vue.js.
The 3 amigos.
So let's dive into those.
Okay, let's explore.
All right, let's start with React.
Okay, React.
What's the big deal with React?
Well, React was developed by Facebook.
Okay.
And it's become incredibly popular.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So what's so special about it?
One of its key features is its component-based architecture.
Component-based architecture.
Yeah, it's a fancy way of saying.
Okay.
You can break down your user interface into smaller, reusable pieces.
So it's like building with Lego blocks.
Exactly like Lego blocks.
I love Legos.
Me too. It's a great analogy.
So instead of writing this giant chunk of code for an entire web page, you create these smaller modular components.
Exactly. And then you can snap them together to build more complex things.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and make your code more organized, easier to manage, and super flexible.
So it's like having a more structured approach.
Yeah, it's a more modular approach.
And React also uses something called a virtual DOM.
Ah, yes. The virtual DOM.
Okay, virtual DOM.
It sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty cool.
Can you explain it in a way that makes sense to someone who's not a developer?
Sure. The virtual DOM basically makes React applications incredibly fast.
Okay, speed is good.
Speed is always good.
So how does it do that?
Well, instead of updating the entire web page every time something changes,
Okay.
React figures out the most efficient way to make those updates.
So it's smarter about it.
It's smarter. It only updates the parts that need to be updated.
And that results in a smoother and more responsive user experience.
Exactly. Nobody likes a slow website.
All right, React sounds powerful.
It is.
Efficient.
Very efficient.
What about Angular?
Okay, Angular.
How does it compare?
Well, Angular was developed by Google.
Okay.
And it's another popular choice.
So it's kind of like React's rival?
Yeah, you could say that they're both vying for the top spot.
So what are Angular's strengths?
Well, it's a more comprehensive framework.
Comprehensive meaning?
Meaning it provides a wider range of built-in tools and features.
So it's more all-inclusive?
Yeah, it's got everything you need in the kitchen sink.
Right, and one of its key features is...
Two-way data binding.
Two-way data binding.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Break that down for me.
Okay, imagine you have a form on a website.
Okay, a form.
With input fields.
Like where you type your name and email address.
Exactly. With two-way data binding, any changes you make in those fields are instantly reflected in the underlying data of your application.
So it's like a live synchronized connection.
Exactly, like a live connection.
Between what the user sees and the data behind the scenes.
Yeah, it keeps everything in sync.
Okay, Angular, comprehensive, and data bound.
That's a good way to put it.
What about Vue.js?
All right, Vue.js.
What's its selling point?
Vue.js is often praised for its simplicity and ease of use.
So it's more beginner-friendly?
Yeah, it's a good one to start with if you're new to frameworks.
It's known for its gentle learning curve.
Yes, it's not as overwhelming as some of the other frameworks.
But don't let that fool you.
No!
It's still capable of building some pretty powerful applications.
Oh, absolutely. It's no slouch.
So Vue.js is like the friendly, approachable framework
Yeah.
that doesn't sacrifice capability.
Exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
All right, so we've got these 3 front-end frameworks,
Mm-hmm.
React, Angular, Vue.js,
The power trio.
all with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, they each have their own pros and cons.
How does a developer decide which one to use?
That's a good question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Okay.
It really depends on the specific project,
Yeah.
the experience of the development team, and sometimes even personal preference.
So there's no right or wrong answer.
Not really. It's about choosing the best tool for the job.
It's good to have options.
Options are always good.
But even with all these amazing frameworks,
Yeah.
learning front-end development can still feel a bit daunting.
It can be a lot to take in.
So where does someone even start?
Well, the good news is there are tons of resources available.
Okay, like what?
You've got online tutorials, documentation courses, even YouTube channels.
Wow, so much information out there.
There's a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips.
It's almost overwhelming.
It can be, but the key is to just pick a path and stick with it.
Okay, focus on one thing at a time.
Exactly. Don't try to learn everything at once.
Master the basics.
Build that strong foundation.
And gradually build up your skills.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Slow and steady wins the race.
But how do you go from learning the basics
Yeah.
to actually building real-world projects?
Well, one of the best ways to learn is by doing.
Okay, so get your hands dirty.
Exactly. Get your hands dirty.
So start with small projects.
Yeah.
Like building a simple website
Uh-huh.
or a basic web application.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
And as you gain confidence,
Mm-hmm.
gradually increase the complexity.
Yeah, challenge yourself.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Absolutely.
Make mistakes.
Mistakes are part of the process.
Learn from them.
That's how you grow.
It's all about embracing the learning process.
Exactly.
Knowing that there will be bumps along the way.
There will be bumps, but that's okay.
But each challenge you overcome
Yeah.
makes you a stronger developer.
It makes you more resilient and more experienced.
So speaking of challenges,
Okay.
let's shift gears a bit
All right.
and talk about the back end,
It back end.
the behind-the-scenes world
Yeah.
that powers all those amazing front-end experiences.
The engine room.
Ready to venture into the engine room of the web?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into full-stack development.
A grand finale.
We've explored the front end, the part users actually see and interact with.
Right. All the flashy stuff.
But now it's time to dive into the back end,
Uh-huh.
the behind-the-scenes world that powers all those amazing web experiences.
The heart of the operation.
So it's kind of like we're going backstage at a concert.
Yeah. I like that analogy.
You know, the audience sees the band, the lights, the performance.
It's spectacle.
But behind it all,
Yeah.
there's a whole crew
A whole team.
making sure everything runs smoothly.
The unsung heroes.
And in web development,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the back end is just as crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
We're building truly robust and powerful applications.
You can't have one without the other.
We're talking about servers, databases, APIs.
The whole 9 yards.
It can seem like a lot to wrap your head around.
It can be a bit intimidating at first.
So let's break it down.
Okay, let's demystify the back end.
At its core,
Yeah.
the back end is responsible for handling the data,
Uh-huh.
the logic,
Mm-hmm.
and the infrastructure
Right, the foundation.
that make web applications work.
It's the backbone of the whole system.
So let's start with servers.
Okay, so
What exactly is a server?
in the context of web development,
Yeah.
think of a server as a powerful computer
Okay.
that's always connected to the internet.
Always on.
24/7, 365.
Constantly listening for requests
Yeah, it's like a waiter waiting for orders.
and ready to respond.
Immediately.
So whenever I visit a website
Mm-hmm.
or use an app,
Mm-hmm.
my device is sending a request
A request for information
to a server somewhere.
to a server sitting in a data center somewhere.
And that server processes my request.
Like a chef preparing your meal?
Retrieves any necessary data.
Yeah, there's the ingredients.
And sends back a response.
Serves up the dish.
All in a fraction of a second.
It all happens incredibly fast.
It's like a silent conversation.
Yeah, a constant back and forth.
Happening behind the scenes.
That's the beauty of the internet.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. It's a marvel of modern technology.
But what about databases?
Okay,
Databases, where do they fit in?
Databases are where all the information lives.
All this data.
All the data for a website or application.
So think of it like a giant organized library.
Yeah, a massive repository of information.
Containing everything.
Everything from user profiles to product information,
Blog posts.
financial transactions.
Basically any data the application needs to function.
Exactly. It's all stored in the database.
So it's not just a jumbled mess of files somewhere.
No, it's very structured and organized.
And there are different types of databases, right?
Yes, different databases for different purposes.
Like what?
Well, you have relational databases.
Okay.
Like MySQL and PostgreSQL.
Right, those names sound familiar.
They're very popular.
And they organize data into tables.
With rows and columns.
Kind of like a spreadsheet.
Exactly like a giant spreadsheet.
And then we have NoSQL databases.
Yes, NoSQL databases.
Like MongoDB.
MongoDB is a popular one.
Which are more flexible.
Yes. They're good for handling large amounts of unstructured data.
So I guess choosing the right database.
Yeah.
Depends on the
Right,
type
and the amount of data.
your application needs to handle.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
Okay, so we've got servers processing requests. We've got databases storing information. But how do these different parts of the back end
Yeah.
actually communicate with each other?
That's a great question. And that's where APIs come in.
APIs.
API stands for Application Programming Interface.
Application Programming Interface.
And you can think of an API
Okay.
as a set of rules and specifications
Okay.
that allow different software systems to talk to each other.
So it's like a common language.
Exactly, a
Yeah.
universal translator.
For the different parts of the application.
It allows them to understand each other.
So APIs define how different components can request and exchange data.
Yes, they establish the communication protocols.
And that ensures everything works together smoothly.
It's all about seamless integration.
For example, when I use a weather app on my phone, it's using an API to get data from a weather service.
Exactly. It's not generating its own weather data.
Right, it's fetching it from somewhere else.
Using an API.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a very common pattern in web development.
Okay, we've covered the basic building blocks of the back end.
Servers, databases, APIs.
But what about the actual code?
The code.
What languages and frameworks are used to build the back end?
Well, just like on the front end, there are many options.
Okay.
Each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
So give me some examples.
Sure, some popular backend languages include JavaScript.
JavaScript again?
Yeah, using Node.js,
Okay.
Python,
Mm-hmm.
Ruby, Java, and C#.
Wow, that's a lot of choices.
It's a diverse landscape.
How do you know which one to use?
Well, the best choice depends on a lot of factors.
Like what?
The specific requirements of the project,
Okay.
the experience of the development team,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes even personal preference.
So some languages are better suited for certain types of applications?
Exactly. Some languages are better at certain things.
So there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
No, it's all about finding the right tool for the job.
And once you've chosen a language,
Yeah?
do you usually work with a framework?
Yes, frameworks are very common in back-end development.
And why is that?
Well, they provide structure
Okay.
and pre-built components that make development faster and more efficient.
So it's similar to front-end frameworks.
Very similar. They serve the same purpose.
Give me some examples.
Sure. For Node.js, a popular framework is Express.js.
Okay.
For Python, you have Django and Flask.
And for Ruby?
Ruby on Rails is the big one.
So frameworks are like prefab kits.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
For building the back end of your application.
They give you a starting point and a set of tools to work with.
It's starting to make a bit more sense now.
I'm glad to hear that.
But becoming a full-stack developer,
Yeah.
mastering both the front end and the back end,
It's a journey.
it seems like a pretty big undertaking.
It is. It's a challenging path, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
So it requires dedication,
Dedication for sure.
a love for problem solving,
You're going to be solving a lot of problems.
and a willingness to constantly learn and adapt.
The tech world is always changing.
So being comfortable with continuous learning is key.
It's essential. You can't just learn one thing and be done.
You can't just rest on your laurels.
Exactly. You got to stay sharp.
But that's also part of what makes this field so exciting, right?
Absolutely. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to tackle.
Keeps things interesting.
It definitely keeps things interesting.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We've been on quite a journey.
We've explored the front end, the back end.
All the nooks and crannies.
What are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Well, I hope they've gained a better understanding of what full stack development really is.
Yeah, what it entails,
The skills and tools involved.
the different paths you can take.
And most importantly, the exciting possibilities this field offers.
It's a demanding path,
It is.
but one that offers incredible creativity, problem solving.
And the chance to build things that impact the world.
And even if someone listening doesn't end up becoming a full-stack developer,
Yeah.
I think just understanding these concepts,
Yeah, the fundamentals.
how the web works,
The interplay between the front end and the back end.
the power of APIs.
That knowledge is valuable in so many different fields.
Absolutely, in today's digital world.
It's a great foundation to have.
So to anyone listening who's feeling inspired,
Yeah.
I encourage you to dive deeper.
Explore those resources.
Start building.
Get your hands dirty.
Who knows?
Right.
Maybe you'll discover a passion for coding you never knew you had.
It happens all the time.
And remember, the journey of learning never truly ends.
That's the beauty of it.
The web is constantly evolving.
Always changing.
There's always something new to discover.
New challenges, new adventure.
So embrace the challenge.
Stay curious.
And never stop learning.
That's the key to success.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks.
So on that note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up our epic exploration of the world of full-stack development.
It's been a blast.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Happy coding, everyone.